and welcome to episode number 39 of the Wedding Business Podcast. I am delighted today to be joined by a very special guest, and that is club member Meg Senior, who is a fantastic human, but also a fantastic celebrant. So welcome to the podcast, Meg. It's lovely to have you here. Can you tell us all a bit about who you are and what you do?
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I feel like we need a bit of a ceremony and celebration. I'm here, you're here, woo! So I'm Meg Senior. I'm a humanist celebrant, and I perform wedding and naming ceremonies for people. So if people haven't heard of a celebrant before, or they don't exactly know what it is, it's essentially a person who gets to know you and hosts, like writes your ceremony and then hosts your day for you. And the magic of that is that you get to meet the person in advance for your wedding, which obviously you don't get to do with a registrar for a civil ceremony. And it's an alternative for people who aren't religious. That's why I'm a humanist celebrant, because I my approach is to live an ethical life without religion. And so the couples that book me, that's their approach to life as well. So they basically want to know that the person who's going to marry them on their wedding day has the same values as them, but also that it's somebody who they actually would want to invite to their wedding. That's my big thing. Like, you know, you don't want to rock up and be like, who's this guy wearing a suit? I wouldn't have asked him normally. Yeah. So with a celebrant, you get to choose. And I suppose my little bit of spiel, my why I got into being a celebrant, is that I had a humanist celebrant when I married my other half, and it meant that the ceremony was the best part of our day because it was really personal and just said everything that we wanted to say in the way that we wanted to say it. So I try and give that to my couples. You know, whatever that may be, it's very, very personal. Yeah. So that's it in a nutshell.
Oh, well, thank you for that nutshell, my love. I think celebrants are awesome. We've had this conversation off air, haven't we? I think celebrants are amazing. And having been, like, obviously my background as a wedding photographer, I've had like a front row seat to literally hundreds of weddings. And I'll be honest, there is a bit of sadness about me when the ceremony is not the special part of the day, because, I mean, that's what we're there for, isn't it? I mean, like, I want to dance the night away like the rest of the people that go to a wedding, but yeah, preach. But we're there to witness the joining of two people, right? That's it. And when it's not personal, I mean, I've seen people have their names forgotten. I've seen people turn up and marry their customers effectively and have no prior knowledge of them. I've seen it happen when it's the most impersonal ceremony, and that is sad. I don't love that vibe at all. And you know, there's this attitude, if you like, towards those sort of old school ceremonies where it's all a bit boring and we can't wait until it's over. And I love that there are people like you, Meg, like disrupting that reputation of boring and impersonal ceremonies and bringing joy and personality to them. And I, for one, would love to have a front row seat of a wedding of yours.
I'll try and get you in, a little observer. Joy, that's the word you use, and that's one of the things that really, I mean, it sounds very airy-fairy, doesn't it? But I literally chose my job because I wanted a happy job, and I love helping people say what they want to say to each other at a happy time, and then delivering that to everyone who loves them and making them feel happy too. And it's literally just this kind of big old, it's just a big loving, but it's all about that joy. You know, probably one of my favorite things about doing ceremonies is when it's usually a grandma or granddad or whatever, or like you know, when you have those family friends who you call auntie and uncle,
Yes.
like the neighbour, and they go, oh, you know, I've known Mark since he was this big, and oh, you just really did a lovely thing for him. And it's those like older family members and friends that make the effort to come and say it was lovely. But I love that, because what they have seen for decades is maybe a traditional ceremony, and you know, the humanist ceremony that they just saw still ticks those boxes. You know, it still makes them feel really proud of their you know, of the person who's getting married, and that's just really lush.
Oh, I love that. I feel like perhaps you were put on this planet to be a celebrant, because you are just like, and I've been in your energy in real life, and you are just, this is just so perfect for you, Meg. It like really hits the spot. How did you, because I know celebrants aren't a new thing, but I feel like the trajectory of the world of celebrants has just gone poof in the last couple of years. How, like, was it literally being inspired by your own celebrant, or did you have an idea before that I sort of think I might want to do something like this?
I'm not sure whether I had an idea before, but that idea of being put on, being my purpose in life, being to be a celebrant. You know, we've done some stuff together on Ikigai. You taught me the concept, and when I worked through, you know, the things that I love, the things that I'm good at, what the world needs, and what's the other thing? Oh, what I can get paid for. Yeah.
Oh yes, sorry. Well, well, let's not forget that one.
We've all got to make money, right? It is being a celebrant.
Yeah.
There are so many things that I could do, because, and that we all could do because we're good at them, or we like them a little bit. But somehow being a celebrant ticks all those boxes. You know, I am like confident speaking in front of lots and lots of people in a kind of you know, in an authentic way. I don't feel like, oh, I have to put on my game face, but I don't have to pretend to be somebody else to then say all of this like genuine stuff about people. And that probably, I was getting that a little bit when I worked in the charity sector, which was my career before, because you often have to stand up and talk from the heart about the cause in front of lots and lots of people and motivate them ultimately to give, you know, because I was a fundraiser. But now I'm just like motivating people to like laugh and cry, and that's really nice. Yeah, all the things that I love and that I'm good at, I kind of get to do with being a celebrant. So I guess it's fortunate, but maybe I've realised that more since starting. Yeah, rather than before. Really, my journey into becoming a celebrant was you know, I decided during the pandemic, like right at the start of the pandemic, as soon as the government said we were going to go into lockdown, my work furloughed, like almost my whole department, and I just can't be idle. So I was at home thinking, okay, well, I'm going to need to do some training. I'm going to need to start doing stuff. And so it kind of came from that. And like I described, I really thought, what do I want to do? And the number one thing, and maybe like the number 2 and 3 thing on my list of criteria, was like, it has to be a happy job, because I just couldn't, you know, after years and years of working in charity, you're faced with a lot of sadness and a lot of emotional labor. And I wanted a break from that. And that's not to say that there's no emotional labor with being a celebrant. There absolutely is. But people don't necessarily come up to me at a wedding and like hold my hand and tell me like a really sad story about their family, which is what I got a lot of before at events. And I think I needed a big shift from that. I don't know, do you find in the wedding industry that people, because I think people are so, you know, personality wise, people are so different. You know, you can have a like very bubbly photographer and then like quite a arty photographer who's a bit more chill or whatever. But do you think everyone is coming into it to try and get a piece of that, like the couple's happiness?
Sadly, I don't think everyone comes into it for that. I think the vast majority do, and I think what I think happens is that the industry will reject people that have come in for the wrong reason quite early on. So you'll see, like, you know, pandemic aside for a second, you'll see a lot of people come into the industry and not stay. And that might be 101 reasons, and it won't always be this. But I think if your primary objective was, I could make a quick buck or two, the wedding industry turns out never to be the right place for you, because it's the long game. And there's no such thing as like an overnight success, really, because there's so many parts of running a business. And I think the one thing, you know, when I'm asked this in podcast interviews, you know, what's the one thing that really helped you grow your business really quickly? It was having like that positive outlook of everything, and being the forever student and going, okay, well, I don't know how to build a website, but I'm going to find out, and I'm going to go on that journey. You know, I don't know the first thing about running a social media account, but I'm going to find out. And I think if you have that outlook on everything, like, I don't know the answer yet, I can't afford that yet, I'm not experienced enough yet, I think the industry welcomes you in and scoops you up, and it's those people that go places.
Yeah, people want to help each other out. Yeah. Well, last week we had the Wedding Business Club live, right? And we all converged around to hear you speak and your lovely speakers. But I noticed we had loads of opportunity to you know, chat and connect with other members, and I noticed people are so keen to support one another. It very much was not a case of like, show up with your business cards and try and sell your wares. It just wasn't. Like, I would be surprised if most people remembered to bring a business card. It was more like, oh, who are you on Instagram? I'll connect with you. Like, or, you know, what is it that you do? Oh, explain that to me. Like, people want to kind of boost each other up.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that is such a huge part of it, because there is a misconception that you come in, you build a business, and the next day you're successful. And you and I both know that it's way more elaborate than that. I mean, actually, Meg, and I'm just going to shine a light back on you for a second. You know, as we're speaking now, it's November 2021, which I can't actually believe, but it is. And you started your business at the beginning of the pandemic. And that might seem like a lifetime to you, and you might be impatient, like, I want it now and I want to grow my business. But what you have achieved is considerably good. Like,
oh, thank you.
I'm just gonna put a spotlight on the post that you recently shared about the elopement. I mean, there was a dog in it, so when there's a dog, I'm always in. But you have very rapidly grown a business that is attracting people that fill you with joy.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I'm so fortunate for that.
But the reason that that's happened, Meg, is that you've got very clear very quickly on what you want from your business. And I'm sure, like, in your situation, lockdown actually helped you with that, because it was like, you gave you the time and the platform, and you could go and train and spend time thinking about it. But as an outsider looking into your business, obviously we've done some work together, I think it's that has made you start with such incredible gusto, is getting clear on what you want.
Yeah, thank you. That's kind of you to say all of that. I think part of it as well is how we measure success.
Oh, yes.
What a big one. But I think, like, you know, I feel really successful, but somebody else would measure success in a different way. So I don't need to, for example, in 6 figures in 6 weeks, or whatever those Instagram adverts are, to feel really successful. And it's not because I'm sort of saying, oh, well, I just need to book one person, you know, one ceremony, and I'll feel like I've done the job. Obviously, I've got my own milestones, but that's what I set for myself. So rather than just going for the big goal of saying, oh, I want to earn like loads of money, or, I mean, that wouldn't ever be really a goal for me. But I want to be fully booked, for instance.
Yeah.
I am not fully booked for 2022, I didn't take the number of ceremonies that I possibly could have taken in 2021, but I still feel successful because I had milestones of like what I'd like to do. You know, I wanted to have a ceremony of each type, you know, naming ceremony and wedding ceremony under my belt in the year. So that was just 2 ceremonies. And once I ticked that milestone, I'm like, yes, like success. And then I've got my next milestone and my next milestone. So I think I probably feel like I'm doing a really good job. Rather not in a like a maybe in an objective way that somebody else would be looking in, but just in a way where it just suits me. It suits me to kind of do it incrementally. But it's what you have said very like so many times, things, you know, it doesn't happen overnight, but it's about consistency and just keep going. What one thing can I do today that will take me closer to my goals?
Mate,
I feel like you said this in like my first ever wedding business club, like Q&A or something, and I literally have it's one of my daily mantras, and I you know, I might not always do something massive. It might be like, well, I really do need to finish that script and get it sent off. Come on, Megs. But sometimes it's like it is bigger, and it's that accumulation of just taking the little steps.
Definitely. When, like, I think you've nailed down like who you want to work with pretty quickly. I would say that took me a good 3 years. I think you've gone very rapidly, and I suspect that's because you've led with what makes you happy rather than I've got to make the money and be grabbing at that. I think the way you started your business has certainly helped you in that area. But when that inquiry lands in your inbox, how do you know, yes, these are my people, apart from the mention of a dog, which is normally
that is on my list.
those weddings rock. But yeah, apart from the dog thing, how do you know, like, I really want to work with these people?
So there's probably 2 parts to this. One is, you're so right, I have done the ideal client work. Although, like, I don't have an ideal client avatar, and it's more of like it's more of like a collection of criteria and a feeling and stuff. But I did sit down and think, and really it's like a combination of me and my best friend. That's what my ideal client, kind of their vibe is. But anyway, so I do have that idea. So when my ideal client comes to me, I'm like, oh, hello, I know you. So that's good, and I can kind of welcome them with open arms. But the other thing is, when an inquiry lands, I am reasonably open-minded until we get to what I call the chemistry call stage. So I get the email or whatever, the notification, and someone says, hey, just checking this day, we'd love to get some more information. Other suppliers would hate that. They'd be like, look at my website, like, what do you mean you don't know my fees, blah blah blah. But I just think, fine, it's fine. And then I sort of send them the brochure and email them, and we get to the point where it's up to them to book a video call with me. On that video call, I can see all of the signs that we might be working together, and they are really just whether there is chemistry between us, whether the conversation flows, whether we've got anything in common at all. Because if we don't, then they're probably not really going to get on with me as a person, and then they're probably not going to book me. But that's fine, because I really like to be liked. I'm sorry, like, I am one of those like people pleasers that everyone's like, don't be a people pleaser. Like, sorry, I do like to be liked. So if they don't like me, I'm like, oh, go and find someone that you really like, because you'll enjoy working with them. So probably at that initial inquiry stage, I don't really get too excited, unless it's quite a cool venue that I'm like, oh, I've been wanting to do something there. But on the chemistry call, I would never rule someone out if they say, you know, my ideal client is like veggie, like me. but people always tell me about their food, and often it's like, oh, we're gonna have a hog roast. I wouldn't be like, alarm bells, you eat meat, I can't possibly do a ceremony for you. It's just it's more because if they are, you know, they want to live an ethical life,
Yeah.
they want a meaningful ceremony, and they're going to engage in the process,
Yeah.
then we'll probably get on really well anyway.
Yeah. It's so interesting, isn't it? Because you just know, like, a lot of it is about intuition, which is the headline for all of those things you've just said as well, like checking off your values, what's important to you, and making sure that you share that commonality. And I imagine as a celebrant that's even more important, because for you to stand up and talk confidently about these people, I imagine you need that common ground.
Yeah, totally. And I'm sure it must be similar with lots of other suppliers that are actually there on the day. Because as a photographer, you're like there whilst
Yeah.
people are getting ready, and to the point at which they're, you know, kicking their shoes off and getting on the dance floor.
Yeah.
You don't want to be around people that you don't quite, you know, like.
Yeah.
And so you have to do a bit of a process of like, oh, would we be friends? Might
Yeah.
we be friends? And then you get to work with people that you love, don't you? You don't have to pretend to be anybody different.
Yeah, which is hard work and tiring and time consuming and all the rest of it. But yeah, finding your people is absolutely imperative. And I think also it's important for your well-being, your mindset as a supplier, because it's not easy running a business. It's not easy starting a business. It's not easy going alone. It's not easy going in a different direction. Like, you've gone from fundraising to being a celebrant. That's a very different direction. And it can take its toll, can't it? It can be pretty heavy. And I think one of the biggest things for me, when I realized I could choose who I work with, which is, you know, understanding who your people are, it helped me in infinite ways from a mental well-being perspective, because I didn't feel like I had to perform as somebody else. I didn't feel like I had to be somebody else. I wasn't like constantly chasing my tail of what I should be for that client. Do you feel the same?
Yeah, totally. And one of my friends, somebody that I used to work with, said something similar to me literally years ago. He was like, you know, if you pretend to be somebody else, people will expect that from you. Whereas if you are just yourself, you talk how you would talk, you know, you don't have a professional self and a home self, then nobody will expect you to be any different. And I mean, I just didn't get it at the time. This was when I worked in charity, and I literally used to say, got to put my charity smile on. That was like my phrase, because stuff was like sad, it was hard, it was stressful sometimes. I mean, it was amazing all the times, but you just had to put your charity smile on and take whatever came.
Yeah.
But you couldn't like almost always. I wasn't being myself. I could have been, couldn't I? And I probably would have been happier had I been. But I didn't really listen to his wise words. But then they come back to me, you know, that this is the kind of the Wedding Business Club vibe, isn't it? Like, it's not just find your niche in a marketing sense. It's more just be yourself, because you're unique, and that's where your value comes from, in just being you.
Yeah, absolutely. How have you, what have you done to help you when it comes to keeping your mind on track? Because obviously, you know, you started a business in an industry that was completely in lockdown. It's like you come into it probably at the worst / best time. How have you cared for your mindset growing a business at that time?
Yeah, I mean, we all went through that last year together, didn't we? And everybody has had their own different challenges. So I'm like, do I want to go down this track where I end up just crying my eyes out? Probably not. So, but mindset wise, I suppose mental well-being, this is one thing that I'm really passionate about. You know, this is one of my passions. I think that I do have a bit of a like daily practice of refilling my cup for the cheesy phrase, but you know, for looking after myself. And that's because I want to try and have a positive outlook, even when things are hard. You know, over the past 18 months, everybody in some way has been through something difficult. And you know, that's true for me and my family as well. And actually setting up a business during the pandemic was probably one of the easier things that I had to do, which is a crazy thing to say. Because obviously it's taken like so much money and time and worrying and learning new things and all this different stuff. But the things which I do to keep mentally well, or to keep mentally in balance probably, are things like exercise and spending time with my dog, and you know, doing things that are a little bit luxurious just for me. Like I love getting my hair done every 6 weeks at my salon is kind of like my sanctuary. And I love the team there, and they're so nice, and we share lots of the same values, and they're just like beauts, right? And I acknowledge my privilege that I am saying, oh, I spend money every 6 weeks on feeling nice, but I actually started going to that salon when I'd finished doing some like quite intense like therapy, and I needed something where I was like, I was spending that money on therapy, that's come to an end, I'm going to spend money on something that I love, and it was my hairdresser, and I've never regretted it. But it's like you just have to decide, don't you, then what your thing is. For my husband, it would be something totally different. He would be like wanting to make furniture that would make, you know, refill his cup, getting his tape measure out, buying a saw, something like that.
Not getting his hair done every 6 weeks. But it's, I mean, you're right. It's a saying that when I say, I'm like, oh, is that a bit cheesy? But it does what it says on the tin. We do need to fill our cup when we're constantly give. And actually, I think you are, and I talk about the royal you, you are a giving person when you work in the wedding industry. Because yes, it can be financially rewarding. Yes, it can be personally very rewarding. You can make friends, you can experience travel if you want to work overseas. But ultimately, you are giving your service or your product so that somebody else can have the best day of their lives. It's never just about you. It's always about the collective. And I think that's what makes us different than many other industries. But the flip side of that is that you can find an imbalance very quickly if you're give all the time. And I've seen burnout happen lots of times with people in the wedding industry, like, you know, people working right into the night, waking up early, managing this and doing that. And I think it can be a tough place to be if you haven't got your priorities straight in terms of looking after yourself. What advice would you give from the work you've done to people who are like, oh, I recognize that I've got an imbalance here. I need to do something for me, not just give to my clients all the time. What advice would you give someone who's at that stage?
I would ask them, can you give yourself 10 minutes today, just 10 minutes? Because I know, without knowing this imaginary person, I know that you deserve 10 minutes to yourself, like just 10 minutes. Can you manage that? And however you create that time, if it's just like putting your phone down when you're about to scroll on Instagram, or if it's making sure that after you've, I don't know, dropped the kids off or done the supermarket shop, you just sit in the car for 10 minutes. you know, you deserve that time, so can you just do that? And it's a baby step, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then the more you do that, even when you don't think you need it, that's the thing that that builds up your resilience, I think. You know, in 10 minutes you can read a few pages of a book, you can go on the Headspace app or whatever your app of choice is.
Yeah.
Or my new favorite thing, which one of my friends told me about, was to like give yourself a mini facial. So when you're doing your cleanser or whatever, if you get a face mask or something, just to like give yourself a little massage. Oh, that's really nice. And that takes 10 minutes. And I do that at the end of the day, like lots of days now. And I'm like, oof, bit of self-care.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be crazy big things. You don't have to pay to go to a gym or start doing yoga or, you know, whatever. You don't even have to really be doing exercise if that doesn't float your boat. But just 10 minutes is doable, and you deserve it.
Yeah. It's a funny one, isn't it? Because when you're it's when you start a business, that's actually when you need that 10 minutes, because it is like everything happens, doesn't it? Oh, I need a website, I need to do this, and I need to do this. Like, you're at that busiest stage where you've got to do all the things, and that can mount up really quickly. So it's then that you really need that 10 minutes of well-being, or whatever we're going to call it. And actually it's at that stage that people are most likely not to be doing it,
because they think, haven't got the time. But you do your 10 minutes when you sit down at your desk, don't you?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. And
So
I can't, I actually struggle now to get going until I've done my 10 minutes. So like Meg said, you know, you've got to find what works for you. Because I have children, I mean, I would love to sit in bed in the morning with a coffee and read a book and meditate and all that lovely stuff. But my lifestyle it's not very practical for me. So I do all the kind of stuff that I've got to do, my obligations, my family stuff. I get everyone out of the door, and my 10 minutes is when I sit down at my desk. And I am incredibly fortunate to have an office that sits in the bottom of my lovely garden, and I sit and I do that 10 minutes, and it is a game changer. Like, there's just no two ways about it. For me, my thing is meditation. I love visualizing. I love a visualization. I cannot tell you the power of that for me. I've visualized things that have come to fruition, and every single time I'm like, I still don't believe it, but I do believe it. And it's such a powerful tool for me. It helps me navigate difficult situations, conflict, or even resistance to grow. And so that's what I do in my 10 minutes. And I now struggle to get going until I've pressed that little reset button. But yeah, it can be, like you say, Meg, it can be reading, it can be exercising. I know some people love to go and thrash it out in the gym for an hour. I wish that was me, but it's not me. So it's about finding your thing, right?
Yeah, and maybe having loads of things.
Yeah.
And that's okay as well. Like, some people love to have variation, don't they?
Yeah.
And some people are creatures of habit. So yeah, maybe having loads of things. Also, like I suppose well-being wise, one thing that's really good to remember, especially if, you know, like you say, in the wedding industry, we're more likely to be like givers. And if that's your kind of style, just remembering that if you do a little bit of replenishing mindset, well-being, then you will give better. You will serve people better. I realize that when I'm stressed and when I'm rushed, my couples don't get the best from me. When I am worrying about whether I'm phrasing something right when I'm writing, which is one of my pinch point, like, stressful times, like, oh God, am I right? Am I capturing what they want to say? When I am editing and re-editing one sentence, they're not getting the best of me. So that's when I need to take myself away, get into the right headspace, do something that's nice for me, and then come back to it in a way that's like a bit more forgiving. And then the end result is always better for the client, or, you know, it's better for your family members that you're going to be spending time with. It's kind of like being selfish to be the opposite.
Yeah, I think that's lovely advice. I think that's absolutely, you're so right. When you're not, and this again sounds cheesy, but I'm going to roll with it. When you're not living the best version of you, you can't possibly give the best version of you to other people, which is what we're talking about here, isn't it? It's like serving your clients or being there for your family members. It's my saying, which we've talked about before, is fitting your own oxygen mask first. They don't tell you that on an aeroplane for laughs. It is actually because to help someone else, you need to be alive.
Yeah. And RuPaul says it every week, right?
Well, yeah.
If you can't love yourself, how the hell are you going to love anybody else?
Yeah, exactly.
So, but when we sometimes, right, we can hear it and hear it and hear it, just like my friend told me many years ago, like, be yourself, don't be anybody else. And I was like, oh yeah, I hear it, but I don't really accept it. You can hear it and hear it and hear it until the day that you go, right, I'm going to do this for myself. Nobody else can look after you for you. Yes, you've got your support network around you, and I hope that there are people who, like my husband bought me a coffee and one of those Portuguese egg tarts today on the way back from the dog walk. And if I didn't have him, then obviously my mental well-being wouldn't be as positive, because he looks after me so well. But at the end of the day, like, I need to take personal responsibility to look after myself, because it's not fair on him to expect him or my sister or whoever to do all the looking after. So yeah, we've got to do it, haven't we?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And Nike always say it the best. You've just got to do it.
Just do it,
I mean,
guys.
like, that no one's going to coin a better marketing strapline than that ever.
No.
And it's annoying, because when you're not just doing it, it's really hard to just do it, and it feels like everything is like, well, that's working for those people, but I'm not those people. But sometimes you just got to pull your socks up and do it, haven't you?
Oh yeah, and I heard this on a podcast. I can't remember who it was, so sorry not to credit the person, but I heard somebody say sometimes it's about acting yourself into the right thinking rather than thinking yourself into the right action. So if you're not feeling it, well, just act like you are and then see how you feel, rather than thinking, why am I not feeling it? How am I going to feel any different? And like, try as much as is possible to break that cycle, and rather than think about how much you should be doing more, just allow yourself to do it.
Yeah, I love that, Meg. It's a bit like the be do have model, isn't it? Like, we will tell ourselves, when I have the experience or the money or the whatever, then I will do the thing which will enable me to become that person. And if you're spending years of your life peddling yourself that story, it will just go on and on and on. It will be just your growth will be very slow. Whereas if you say, I am the person, I am that whoever you're becoming, which means I will do that thing, that's when you start to have the benefits and reap the reward of that. And that's really, really powerful. And yes, you've got to dig really deep sometimes, because you're like, but I don't have the experience. Okay, well, if you had that experience or the money or the whatever, the know-how, how would you behave? And yeah, it's a very, very powerful sort of way of breaking into something, for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
What would you say, Meg, to somebody who's, and because this is quite fresh for you, if someone said to you, Meg, I'm sold, the wedding industry looks like a fab place to be, which it is, we know that. What advice would you give them to start their business?
That's such a good question. Two things. Number one, join the Wedding Business Club. But we're going to talk, I think we'll talk about that later, won't we? So number two, I would just say, like, remember, you can do hard things. I know for a fact that you have done something hard. You have had a baby, or you have written a dissertation, or you have experienced bereavement, or you have cooked for 25 people at Christmas dinner, like whatever that hard thing is that you have done, you've done it. Remember how like ace you are for having done it. And then when you're looking forward to, setting up your business and getting into things, be realistic. You are going to have to do hard things.
Yeah.
But you can, because you already did that really hard thing before. You've got the medal or the baby or whatever you've got that. And I think I have to tell myself that. That's why I have started getting back into running, because that is the one thing that reminds me more than anything else that I can do hard things, because there was a time when I couldn't run for 60 seconds. And now when I can run for like 3 minutes or 5 minutes or whatever, I'm like, I can do hard things. So yeah, I would say that's probably the biggest mindset thing. But yeah, I mean, if people are thinking about becoming a celebrant, there are loads of ways. There are a few different ways to train to get into it, and that's quite hard. And I bet that is the same for lots of different parts of the industry. I'm not sure. I know some people change hobbies into their career, and maybe that's a bit of a different thing. But I would say, like, just even taking the first step into researching who you want to train with, just even that first step, just try and do it intentionally. Like, just try and do it in a way that is aligned with your values and what you want to get out of life. Because, my guiding star was that I wanted to do a happy job, and that's resulted in me getting where I am. So maybe do that bit first of like, what is it that you want? Because then that's going to help you navigate even that first step of like, oh, where do I get started?
Yeah, love that. What's the, I mean, I'm sure there's more than one, but if you had to pick one thing that has moved the needle most in your business, what would you say?
Well, that's a great question, but it's so hard to answer with one thing. Because so I was looking back over this month, November 2021 it is, isn't it? And this, in terms of bookings, has been my most successful month, like, of business. Woo, woo, woo. Lovely. Yes, I've got loads of lovely couples. I can't wait to work with them. And I was trying to work out, like, have they all come from the same source? Like, where are they? And every single one has come from a different source. So it isn't one single thing that has resulted in this really successful month, because some people have found me because I've done some stuff on SEO. So they found me through Google. Some people have found me through the Humanist Network. I've had somebody come to me who was at one of my ceremonies, and then
wow,
yeah, it's lovely. And then people making a referral or whatever. So lots of different sources. But the one thing that is different this November than had it been last November that I got all these bookings is that the value of the booking is a lot higher, because I decided to put my fees up in the summer to something that actually was more equivalent to the amount of work that I was putting in and my overheads and stuff. So in November of 2020, if I'd taken all of these bookings, then I would have been like, oh my gosh, I'm so fully booked, but I wouldn't really have had very much money on the books to show for it. Whereas now the difference is maybe like $1,500, which is big to me in my little one-man band business. So yeah, I would say having, maybe that's like, everything is important, but if you can get to the point where you are charging your worth, or you feel like you're getting paid more than minimum wage, or you might just want to get paid living wage, whatever, but then you're gonna think, I'm fully booked and I can afford to live. That's a big change. So yeah, maybe just looking at your fees. But that's like not a new business thing, is it? That's more any stage you're at.
Yeah, but I think it's weird, isn't it, when you start a business? And I've worked with obviously hundreds and hundreds of people who run their business, and I love when people are ambitious and they're like day one of their business and they're like, well, I'm charging this today, but I don't want to be charging that for the rest of my life. And I'm like, great, like you've got to have that sort of, this is where I want to go. But you also have to enjoy the process of getting there, because you can't be you in 10 years and charge those rates now, because it's those collective 10 years of you refining your skills and practicing what you do and doing more training and investing in yourself and becoming even better that gets you to that. So it's a bit chicken and egg. You can't do that until you've done it, but you do you know what I mean? So I love it when people have fierce aspirations for their business, and I actually like it when someone says, you know, I want to make a good amount of money from running my business. I've got a penchant for handbags and I want to buy a new handbag every month. Great, love, brilliant. Let's go with that, as well as putting, you know, food on my table. And I think that's fantastic, but it's finding that sweet spot between the ambition and the patience that it takes, because I always knew that I had big aspirations for my life and my business, but I was out there, you know, slogging it out with the rest of us, working hard and you know, rolling my sleeves up and doing things that I was like, oh, afterwards, you know, maybe that's not really the thing that I want to do. And I think it's about accepting all of that and like collecting all of the evidence, tipping it out on the table and going, yes, now I know I want to do that bit and that bit and that bit, and that's what makes me happy. And then just going like you've done, Meg, hell for leather for the things that you know are in line with your values.
Yeah. I mean, you said it better than I could say it. Yeah, tip it all out.
Tip it all out. Tip it all
and
out.
refine it. Be intentional.
Yeah.
And just try and there is graft. There is graft, but then people will very quickly give up on their business enterprise, won't they? If they don't want to do that, like you're not going to do it. If you think it's going to come easy to you, then you'll just sell cakes to your friends or whatever, rather than becoming you know, a fully fledged business.
Yeah, and I do think like it's a weird one, because it's in the coaching industry, and obviously I've got a lot of friends who are coaches, but there was this sort of wave of like of narrative that started to say, if you're working hard, you're getting something wrong. Like you know, you can do it easier than that. You can do it faster and quicker. And oh my gosh, yes, definitely. When I look back at me running my business, there was no wedding business club. There wasn't really, people didn't really connect. There wasn't the buzz that exists now. And there's definitely ways that I could have done things faster, 100%. Like I'm sure of that. And that's, you know, why I started the Wedding Business Club. I don't want people to be slogging away at something for 5 years when they could have it licked in 12 months. Genuinely, I don't want that. But also, I think we have to be like willing to roll our sleeves up and start at the bottom and work hard. Like, I don't think you need to be working with your fingers to the bone, but I think anyone who's not willing to work hard, I don't think the wedding industry is going to suit you.
No, but that's not to say that you're not enjoying working hard. Like I used to have a boss who wouldn't sign off time off in lieu if you'd worked an event that you probably enjoyed. She'd be like, oh, but that event was at the Natural History Museum, so you probably had quite a good time, so you can only have half a day, even though you work through the night. And the point is, are you saying that I need to hate my job in order to be worthy of being paid for it? Like, you can be working really hard and for that to still be like a really fulfilling and satisfying thing. You know, when I sit down and write a script, during the writing process, that is very hard for me. It's not hard for some celebrants because they love that creative writing bit, and I'm really good at it. You know, I wouldn't have taken it on as a job if I wasn't getting great feedback, but it's hard for me because I'm in my own head and blah blah blah. I want to get the wording just right, but at the end when I send it off, I feel so good because I've worked hard. Whereas the bits that are easy, you know, doing my admin, that's easy for me because I like spreadsheets or whatever. At the end of it, I don't think like, oh yeah, because it's just admin and I find it easy.
Yeah.
So there's value in applying ourselves, isn't there? Because we get a little boost out of that, I think.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Meg, I mean, I could literally sit and talk to you all day about all of the things.
Shall we?
I do have one final question, and that is, obviously, because you're on this podcast, that means you are a member of the Wedding Business Club. That's how we got to know each other. I'm forever grateful that you found us, however you found us, and you are an incredibly valued member of the community. Tell us about your experience of being a member.
I just love it. I love the Wedding Business Club. I am a fully fledged member of the, Freya calls it the Fae train, doesn't she? One of the other members. Yeah, let's all board the Fae train. No, lots of the things that we've talked about, you know, that are mentioned above, if you want, I wouldn't really have done at this stage without the Wedding Business Club, I don't think. So, you know, understanding what an ideal client is and actually how to go about working that out for me and for my business. That's just one example, but also like just literally 1,000 things. 1,000 things. And I've connected with people who are just absolute beauts, but also who, you know, we've then been able to work together, which has helped my business, but also just makes me feel great. Like I am one of those people who makes friends through work, and actually loads of my friends for life or friends I've met in the workplace.
Yeah.
And I'm so fortunate for that. And it's something that I was missing working on my own, mostly, you know, typing away and doing my video calls and stuff. Yes, I go to my ceremonies and I interact with my couples, but I don't have a body of colleagues. And that's what the Wedding Business Club is. It's a community of people who want to celebrate with you. You know, how often do people just literally jump on the group to go, guys, I just had to tell you that my style shoot has been featured.
Yeah.
Or, oh my goodness, I've had a breakthrough and I really understand, you know, what my branding should be like, you know, all different things. And it's just like having a group of colleagues around you. And I love that. And that's the main reason to join, I think. But also that practical advice and practical help is genuine. It isn't, you know, like the stuff that you sometimes get advertised, which is essentially people trying to sell stuff to you. I always feel like in the club, the content that you're giving us really does help. And compliment time, Faye, you're always adding value for members. You're always adding things that we didn't expect we were going to get, and you're not doing it or it never feels like you're doing it to be like, please stay. You're just like, members, I love you, and I think you'd like a directory now where you can all check where you are. I'll give you that. I think you'd like, you know, all the things that you add for us. And when you get guest speakers to come and speak to us, you know, everything you're doing, you're pouring so much into it. And I think I for one definitely feel that. I feel like a valued member.
Oh, well, you are 100%. And I'm very glad to have you in the club. Thank you for your lovely kind words. That means a lot. And of course your time. Thank you so much for coming and chatting to me on this episode of the podcast. It's been invaluable. And I think, you know, this will be a story that goes on for many years. Like, how do we look after ourselves when we're running a small business? But the truth is, you got to do it right, and you've got to do it. You've got to do the work, and lean into whatever feels right for you. But go. If you're not doing anything to care for yourself, go and have a think about what you could do.
Just 10 minutes. Just take 10 minutes today.
Meg's in charge.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're welcome, Meg. And we'll speak soon.
Take care.
Bye.